But before that, I see that there are a lot of rising numbers of COVID cases in Florida, and I want to talk about the vaccine because everyone has a lot of questions and things. I invited a friend of mine, Ross Federman. He's an immunologist. He's going to talk to us about that. But before we get him on the screen, we're going to look at a little news clipping of what's going on in Florida.
Number of people in the hospital in Florida right now because of COVID-19, and this is the number, 15,962 people. That number is up after a small decrease over the weekend.
Seeing not only this dramatic increase in COVID hospitalizations, but we have significant patient volumes of critically ill non-COVID patients.
Bringing on with us tonight, this evening, we have Ross Federman, who's an immunologist. We're going to ask some questions about the vaccine and any other questions we may have. Ross, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here this evening. So I'm going to lead off the first question. There's a lot of misconceptions about the vaccine. Can you kind of give us a little information of what it's supposed to do?
Yeah. So a vaccine is basically supposed to teach your immune system what to look out for to be prepared when it shows up. And not only that, not just knowing what to look out for, but making all the tools to fight it. So it's sort of like almost like a mock invasion by an enemy, where you really get the chance to see everything that enemy is going to do, where they're going to set up their bases, where they're going to invade first, where they're exactly how they're going to try to conquer your country. The only difference is when they do that, they don't actually have any weapons, and you still get to watch them trying. And so you can basically allow your immune system to come up with the perfect game plan, create the perfect weapons to fight it, and be prepared. And you can make those weapons in an actual battle on the spot if you get sick, but if you had the opportunity to invite your enemy to kind of fake it, that's sort of what a vaccine does. And so you kind of learn what to do and create all the tools to do it without being at any real risk.
Okay. Ivan, I'm going to bounce it off to you.
Well, I guess my question is, they were talking about herd immunity from day one. So we had 70% of the population got it, vaccinated and everything else, and that didn't happen. So of course now we have the variants. There was the Lambda, there's the Delta. So now they're saying, I read a report earlier, they're saying at this point herd immunity is not going to happen because we didn't actually get the 70% to begin with. So now the variants are coming on board, and they're actually becoming more aggressive than what the original thing was. So do you think we did too much too soon and didn't really kind of pull back where we should have? Or
Oh, I see. Too much. I thought you were saying too much mitigation.
Oh, no. There wasn't enough.
Yeah, no, but it's tough. It's tough to know these things. I think something to keep in mind is that when people talk about these numbers like herd immunity and a percentage, they're not fixed numbers. Right. Pretty much everything that comes into the conversation, you'll hear the number R naught talked about a lot. That's like on average how many other people each contagious person will infect. Like that's not a super fixed number. That's right. Dependent on behavior and of course dependent on changes that the virus in this case may undergo to make it more transmissible, which is what happened with the Delta. And I think, was it too early to kind of say, hey, enough people are vaccinated, let's open stuff up? I don't know. I was a little skeptical, but I think if the Delta hadn't necessarily shown up so quickly and been that much more contagious than the previous versions, I don't know that we'd be anywhere in the kind of situation we're in now. And so I think the most important thing is we just kind of need to pay really close attention always, not try to deny whether things are getting worse when they really are, and understand when to kind of make those adjustments.
Ivan, I'm going to break in real fast. Someone named J. Melvin Meacham says you're very handsome.
Oh,
continue.
Thanks J. Melvin. It's this bright ring light I busted out of the closet because I don't normally do any kind of like on camera stuff. So this is a bit of a departure for me. So
Ivan, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, for me, and of course, I'm also the prankster here, so I will jump in a moment to have a little laughter. But as far as I was concerned, people were kind of disgusting before the virus. They're kind of disgusting with the virus. Yeah, and they're gonna be disgusting after the virus.
Sure.
So I'm going to assume that everybody has a damn bug. I'm going to keep wearing my mask. It's just
and I think there's something to be said for that. and a lot of people also point out that I know there's growing concern that are we actually preventing a lot of the spread of other diseases, some that might be helpful to get and get immunity to? I mean, I would generally argue that a lot of these things you don't want to be sick, and I haven't seen. I don't think we have the data yet on it, but I don't think we're anywhere close to being at risk of like overly sterilizing our environment just through the mask wearing that we have. I would be very surprised if that's something that we would have run into as a problem already, just from a year of the behavior. And I think the reality isn't, the mask. It's definitely more. It's going to help you out more for respiratory viruses. It's not going to do a lot for any sorts of other communicable diseases. Right. And you can imagine. A mask is really going to do nothing for any type of STI, for example. Right. It's just not. That's not what they're for. What they're for better protection against respiratory viruses, and we just happen to have this. No, I was kidding. We happen to somewhere on that one. Yeah, in the midst of a really, really bad respiratory infection pandemic right now. That's just the reality. Yeah.
So I want to ask in your opinion, not to get political, but do you think that DeSantis is banning mask in schools, like, is that gonna not help the spread? What is it gonna do? Because I just read over in I think Brevard County, there were 3,000 students and staff that were in quarantine now, and even in my own city, cases are rising. So do you think that a mask mandate would probably?
Yeah, I think probably at this point, it's important that I do just make one disclaimer, which is that, of course, the views that I'm sharing here, my opinions are those of myself, not the company I work for or anybody else that I affiliate or associate with. But
cover yourself. Cover yourself, definitely.
Yeah, cover myself as well as the mask is going to cover me. No, I think the idea of just simply saying that mask mandates are illegal is. I see that as an example of kind of ignoring the problem and trying to pretend, that there isn't some actual problem that is a very real one that does exist, that is actually threatening people's health, livelihoods, and lives every day. And so I understand that, people want to say, oh, this needs to be personal decisions. But at the same time, I think we're not even giving people, well, some of us are, which is, why I wanted to come on tonight. But a lot of our elected leaders aren't really leading. They're not providing good, reliable, and truthful information to people. And so I just think, if you want to put everything in the hands of people to make their own decisions, it's really important that you make sure you get them the right information such that they're making informed decisions.
Absolutely.
And I think, the idea, maybe he's not saying masks don't work, but certainly the rhetoric that's coming around, how important masks, the idea of saying, there are states that pass laws and, actually in their state legislatures, putting it on the books saying we can never allow any type of local health official to understand what's going on in their community and put mask mandates into effect. What if, take another example, 15 years from now, there's some type of toxic chemical spill and a mask is the clear answer there. And it's not even just any kind of thing that's been going on for a year. It's just that there's noxious gas in the air. And now all of a sudden you've got a law in the book saying you can't tell the people in your town to put masks on to protect themselves. I see that as pretty indicative of the sort of we should just try to ignore it problem. And I think it's pretty clear what's been happening the more that people have just tried to ignore the problem.
And my final question before we let you go. So the vaccine, there are people who have been saying that, people are still getting sick with COVID-19. I think you kind of explained that before, but can you kind of
Yeah. So it's important to remember that vaccines, they're really not designed to work at an individual level. It's not supposed to be necessarily a guarantee that any one individual who's vaccinated is fully, absolutely 100% protected against ever becoming infected with that pathogen. And a big part of the reason why is that our immune systems are very different from one person to another. And that's by design. We, as a species, have really sort of diversified the set of genes that make up our immune system, and in a way that really helps us as a whole group of people stay protected against anything that nature might throw at us. But because of that, everybody's responses to vaccines are a little bit different. And essentially, you make up for that by just increasing the numbers of vaccines. So, if something is 99% effective and you basically say, okay, each one at a time, I'm going to, just see if I can get that 1 out of 100, and you look at it on just a case-by-case separate basis, it's always going to be 1 out of 100. But in reality, when you're talking about a huge population of people, and assuming that if everybody can get vaccinated, that's like 1 in 100 multiplied each time, not just kind of in separate case scenarios. And so that, when we've seen enough people get vaccinated, and again, it's always a give and take with what particular virus or pathogen it is that we're trying to stop the spread of, but it is a community level effect. And it's one of those things where the more people that are vaccinated, the fewer cases probably of any type of breakthrough infections we would have. And so you can't really judge a vaccine solely based on how it's behaving in any one individual person. It's very much so a population effect. But I think it's important to remember, just contextually, historically, these vaccines have been our way out of some of the largest problems that have plagued mankind. Smallpox was the first. Actually, I brought this because I found it while I was unpacking. This is what vaccine used to come in. This is an old smallpox vaccine tube. Wow. And so this is probably from the 50s or 60s. This little thing came out in the mid 20th century and put an end to an average of 50 to 60,000 deaths per year of smallpox. And that had been going on for decades, if not centuries, actually. And we're lucky that that we sort of discovered the technology to do this and have developed it. And it's something that, as immunologists, we are always constantly striving to find ways to improve vaccines to make them better. And I think in this case, what we saw a great example of is ways to make vaccines faster. And that is something that, if you look back, I mean, we could still be in a fully unvaccinated state for years more based on sort of traditional pandemic. If you look at polio, you look at some of these things that have really gone on for a very long time. So, I mean, I for one am, and I will say, the mRNA technology actually, as tested on such a large scale, was a new thing. And I looked at it very skeptically as a scientist to see how well this is going to do. And you really can't deny the trials and the data that we've seen ever since. And that is that they are wildly effective. And I do want to just point out, though, that in terms of safety, they had been tested for the last couple decades throughout development. So we knew that the safety profile was strong. There was no real risk there. It was just a question of, is this thing going to really work? And now there is some concern that at least the lifespan of how long it'll work might not be that long compared to some other vaccines where you get once and you have lifelong immunity. Here we are saying, we're probably going to need to start getting boosters for everybody. There's now saying 8 months after. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. That just means it works really, really well, but only for a short amount of time. And so it does require some boostering. And that's not unexpected, because that's just how coronaviruses are with natural immunity too. So if you got coronavirus and you think you've got lifelong protection, you might want to find a way to get some antibodies titered and see, because often the natural cases of infection will fall off just as quickly in terms of antibody protection as the vaccines, if not even quicker.
All right. Thank you so much, Ross, for being here with us tonight. Like, literally, I feel like a little bit more comfortable with more information. I feel like knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Yeah. And you know what? I encourage everybody to just do what you can to find information you trust, somebody that you really know is an expert. And, I understand that might not be me popping up on your screen and you don't know me or who I am or what my credentials are. But, I would say just, often when it's elected officials telling you things, there might be something else at play. Ask your doctor if you have a trusted care provider in the family, your local clinic. People like that should hopefully give you the real information that can help you make the right decisions.
Well, I would like to give my thanks to to Ross Federman for joining us, immunologist. I'm so happy we got a chance to connect and have you on the show. I learned a lot tonight. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ross.
Thanks.
All right. Ivan, how did you feel after that before we move on?
That was informative. I mean, I did have the one question I was going to ask, but that would have taken an hour, so I didn't ask it.
Thank you.